Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is the Sunshine Coast Regional District regular board meeting of Thursday, May 14th, 2020. And I'd like to call us to order at 1:34 p.m., just running a couple minutes behind today. I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting and spread across the traditional territories of the Sechelt and the Squamish First Nations, and we're very grateful to be here today. One thing I would like to make sure that everybody is aware, we do have an amended agenda. We did add on an item from earlier today from our Planning and Community Development Committee from earlier. So if you make sure that you have that directors in front of you, it should be in your sync folder. It's also available up on the website. For members of the public that are joining us today, you can be watching us live on YouTube with just a slight delay, or there is also the option in the Zoom function, and all of that information is on our website. So welcome to everyone that's here with us today. Prior to adoption of our amended agenda, I had a request from Director Seegers to add something in before we adopt our agenda. So over to Director Seegers.
Thank you. So as elected officials, we don't come to this role of directors knowing the ins and outs of the legal environment that we're tasked with making decisions inside of. The Local Government Leadership Academy puts on courses and seminars to support education and training for elected officials. The curriculum focuses on a set of core competencies like leadership, accountability, big picture thinking, stewardship, and of course, some of that legal stuff that I was talking about. Recently, Director Lori Pratt has been awarded her LGLA Level 1 certificate. On behalf of the board, staff, and the community we represent, I want to acknowledge and thank you for your dedication and willingness to learn and increase the level of knowledge and expertise you bring to the role. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was typically with LGLA, you actually can't apply for this. Once you do the courses, you can't typically apply for the certification until after you've completed a term of office. However, as I've already technically completed 3 terms in office in another level of government, they made me eligible for this certification. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the acknowledgement. Thank you. That's wonderful. So with that, I would like to ask for, before we ask for a motion to adopt our amended agenda, do we have any other items to add in? Looking to staff or directors. Seeing nothing, no late items, not beyond the one that we added in earlier. Okay, so with that, may I ask for a motion to adopt our amended agenda? So moved, seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries. We have 2 sets of minutes coming up here. We have Annex A, pages 1 to 2, the special emergency board meeting minutes of April 17th, 2020. First, may I have a motion to receive those minutes? Actually, no, just hang on one second. We're going to do these together unless there's any objection. We also have the regular board meeting minutes of April 23rd, 2020, Annex B, pages 3 to 9 of our package. I'm going to ask directors for a motion to receive and adopt both sets of those minutes, both Annex A and Annex B. So moved and seconded. Seconded, Director Hiltz. Are there any questions arising? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business? I heard somebody unmute themselves. No, we're good. Okay. All right. We have no presentations and delegations today. We do have a reports. So I'm going to ask for a motion to receive all of our reports and communications, please. So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries. We're going to move to Annex C, the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations numbers 2 through 10 of April 23rd, 2020. Directors, before we move those as a block, are there any of those recommendations that you would like to pull out to discuss and debate separately? Okay, seeing none, I am going to ask for a motion to adopt the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations numbers 2 through 10 of April 23rd, 2020. Motion, so moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have the Special Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations numbers 1 through 2 of May 4th, 2020, Annex D, pages 14 to 15 of your package. Directors, before we move those as a block, did you want to discuss any of those recommendations separately? Seeing no one jumping up and down, I am going to ask for a motion to adopt number 5 on our agenda, the Special Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations 1 to 2 of May 4th, 2020. So a motion, please. So moved and seconded. Seconded, Director Hiltz. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, next up, 5A, and this is the Planning and Community Development Committee recommendation number 8 of earlier today, page 15A of your package. Directors, may I have a motion to adopt that recommendation, please? So moved, Director Toth, seconded, Director Kroll. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have communications. We have Annex E. This is from Heather O'Hara, BC Association of Farmers Market, regarding BC farmers markets. And we have received this communication. Directors, is there anything you'd like to do with this at this time? Just for receipt alone? Response? Nothing? No, we're good. We're good. It's good and informative communication. That's fantastic. Great. Okay. We're just moving right along. We have no motions today, but we've got one bylaw up for adoption. And so this is Annex F, pages 19 to 20 of the package. This is the Sunshine Coast Regional District Sanitary Landfill Site Amendment Bylaw number 405.21, 2020. We have weighted voting on this. We've already had 3 readings, and it is for all directors. And we are going to be having adoption at this meeting. So directors, I am going to ask for a motion for adoption, please. So moved, Director Kroll. Seconded, I saw Director Toth. Any further discussion on this item? Nope. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. And I will say, if directors, if I'm moving too fast, or staff, if I'm moving too fast, like wave your arms madly, or throw something at the screen, or unmute yourself. But otherwise, we're all good. Okay, so next up on our agenda is our director's reports. Today we are going to start. Let's see. We are going to start with Director Hiltz in West Howe Sound, Area F, and the floor is yours. Oh, you're on mute, Mark.
Sorry, I double click on it. Just a couple items. Back in April 24th with the How Sound Community Forum, which was conducted via Zoom with the host Ruth Simons, and I sent around a word cloud by email. Not sure if everyone has had a chance to look at it, but what was interesting was you had, I don't know, some 40 elected officials, and the question was, how are people feeling in this COVID period? And we were asked to put in 3 words, and it collects the numbers, and it was an incredibly optimistic and resourceful group of grateful, concerned people who are doing all kinds of work. So it was really a nice sharing of how difficult it is, but how much opportunity seems to be before us. And a couple of things from that meeting is, as well as COVID, we have everything else going on. I think at least 5 of the local governments have had CAO changes since January. Forest fire in Pemberton in April. Wastewater facility plants failing. There's a lot to go on. So it really is, I find, inspiring to see people working in the background, doing the local government work. So it was a good meeting. And the other piece is just recently was the Gibson's and District Public Library Association board meeting, again via Zoom. And the Gibson's Public Library staff have been adapting to the COVID lifestyle and has now implemented a online form for ordering books and picking up, with a whole protocol of taking books in and quarantining them and cleaning them before they can get out to people. So they're really trying to figure out ways to continue to serve the community. So I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Director Hiltz. So I'm going to go next to Director Toth and the District of Sechelt.
All right. I don't have a lot to report right now. District of Sechelt has passed its budget, our 2020 to 2024 financial plan bylaw, and tax rates and all those fun things that go along with it. We're looking at an increase of 3.8%, which is a lot less than we were originally contemplating, but our staff were able to go back and make some changes fairly quickly. We did have some adjustments that had to be made near the last minute to compensate for changes in assessment values in our area. We've got a fairly large increase that's coming in our sewer fees to cover off a lot of costs that have come due for the WRC, and to make sure that our system is adequately funded. We've also got a very substantial increase in our septage receiving rates that's going to be effective June 1st. Previously, we hadn't put any money aside for site development or dredging of our waste lagoons or disposal of those solids when they come out. So in addition to that, the site is on leased land. The lease is up in 2031, so we need to plan for closure and decontamination and development of a new site somewhere. And there hadn't been any money set aside for that. And I know that there's been a lot of pushback on that because people are seeing it much like water out of nowhere. And so we've been having some communications with people in the public realm about that. I don't usually report on it here, but I do sit on the District of Sechelt, the Sechelt Library Board as well, with Chair Pratt, and I know that they're making steps towards a reopening date. I don't know how much of it is public yet, so I don't really want to say too much, but they are looking at implementing some reopening procedures. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say, and Director Seegers will fill in what I missed.
Great. Thank you, Director Toth. Next up on my list, I have Director Lee and Area A, please.
Yeah, I got my prepared report already. Actually, I've been getting the odd question about utility bills, and seeing I have multiple septic systems here in Pender. I've been learning all about the intimate details of the economics of all of the sewage systems. It's funny how when you're making the decisions, you understand them, but to repeat it back requires a little more study. It's actually, I'm looking at it as a learning opportunity, and I think next year I will keep my files a little differently so that it's more readily accessible. But anyways, the other thing is that the Pender Harbor Community Task Force is buzzing right along, and everything's become routine, which is that's the one that responds to the COVID-19 and makes sure that the social safety nets are in place, and the community really stepped up, and it's we're meeting once a week, and it's routine now, which is actually quite good. Then the last thing I would just like to report on is that SANECO and BCTS have been doing consultations with the Egmont Community Club and the North Lake Community Association, and they're very successful and they're very appreciated by the community. As usual, there's hard questions asked and all that stuff, but very, very impressed with the end result, and very impressed with the SANECO executive. Very, very patient, very, very understanding. And BCTS themselves. And there was actually for example, there was a hydrologist study of the North Lake watershed, which is not a community watershed. It's quite residents draw the water individually out of the lake. But they commissioned a study to make sure that the logging was not going to have, well, a minimal effect on the lake, if any. And it was very, very refreshing to see. And I don't think that would have happened without, well, I know it wouldn't have happened without the support of SANECO, because it's not something that's normally done. And on an aside, they tried corporate Skype, but they ended up with Zoom. Couldn't get her working. So I guess when we chose Zoom, it was a good thing. It's an easy one to connect, and it works for a lot of people. So that's my report. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Director Lee. Next on my list, I have Chief Paul from the Sushelt Nation.
Wasn't sure whether I clicked that right or not. Everything on our end of the world is everybody's getting into the routine. Nothing new to report other than we are now commencing return to work scheduling and trying to get an idea of what the new BC provincial rules are, WCB rules, and how we implement those. Our HR people and our division managers are going absolutely crazy trying to figure out how it all works and how traffic patterns in the building will work and all the rest of it. We're going to take a very slow and steady approach to it. We're working very diligently to make sure that those that are uncomfortable can work from home if at all possible, and that work goes afoot. Nothing much more to report as far as organizational goes. EOC is our interface with that is coming along well. We've got our first draft of our emergency planning COVID style on the table, and the team members on that one are pulling their hair out trying to figure out how we took an earthquake plan and put it into a health problem and trying to make it all work. So they're going like crazy on that, and everything seems to be going fairly well. That we should have a report generated out to us in the next week or so. At this point, we're looking forward to the May long and a little time off. Next week, I've got a week planned away. Don't know if that's going to happen, but I booked the week off anyway. So if you don't see me next week, you'll know why. Thank you.
Well, Warren, I think the last time you planned a week away, we saw you the entire week. So I hope you do get some time away. But Thank you very much. Next up, we're going to go over to Director Seegers and our other District of Sechelt counselor, also known as the mayor.
So Director Toth actually reported on the district stuff. One thing that we are doing as well as the regional district is doing is looking at what does it look like to reopen. Don't know. We don't know if it's going to be, some staff working, alternate days of the week, half days, some continue to work from home. Don't know. The staff are putting together that plan. The one that I'm going to find interesting is how do we do council meetings? We're all looking at that one too. I mean, our boardroom at the regional district isn't set up for social distancing either. So be interesting to see how that goes forward. So what have I been involved with? The Chamber of Commerce, the Sechelt Chamber of Commerce does a breakfast with the mayor once a year. So it's like a State of the Union for the District of Sechelt. Of course, we couldn't get together for breakfast, so we did a Zoom meeting. So I presented information on our budget and answered questions and things that they had. They had some good questions. They hold me to task, which is good. What else? I've taken part in a couple of birthday celebrations, like the drive-by things. They're so much fun. So we did one for our corporate officer and one for our executive administrator in this last week. So it was great. We all gathered up and do a drive-by. Still doing the regular weekly meetings with Vancouver Coastal Health and with Minister Robinson. And then last week, the four of us, Warren, Laurie, I, and Bill, were on the local government show. And I have to say, we got to the end of the show. It's the first time that I've heard Steve Sleep say, I really enjoyed that. Usually I think he finds it kind of boring, but he actually enjoyed it. That was kind of cool. What else have I got here? Oh, I'll finish up with, two more. The Sunshine Coast Community Forest AGM we had on Monday, again through Zoom. And I ended up having a meeting with the Sechelt Brownies on Monday night. Didn't have great turnout. We're going to do it again, but we did a little Zoom meeting and they were asking the mayor questions. Community Action Team meeting as well. They've had to change up how they're dealing with things. So it was basically a touch base to see how things are doing here with the Community Action Team. They did talk about the fact that in conjunction with the province, BC Housing has rented some rooms at one of our local motels and have taken some of the residents from the homeless shelter and put them in there so that it could actually spread out at the homeless shelter. Our homeless shelter will hold 20, and they're now down to 10 to allow for that social distancing. What else? We are having movement on the Sunshine Coast with some of the doctors with regards to providing and prescribing additional medications for those who are looking for them. So things are moving forward there, and we'll see how the next few months play out. I think that's enough. Thanks.
Terrific. Director Lee, do you have a question for Director Seegers?
I was hoping Director Seegers would mention the fact that she attended these consultations with me. I really appreciated it. We started at 5 and we finished at 9:30, and that was a big chunk of her time. And I really did appreciate her presence there. It was very helpful.
Thank you. I enjoyed being there actually, to see how BC Timber Sales and Senco are actually interacting with the community. It's one of the things that Director Lee and I are talking about is coordinating with BC Timber Sales to see how they're going to take what they're learning up here, because this is a totally new process for them, how they're going to take what they're learning here and incorporating it in other areas on the Sunshine Coast. That's it.
Director McMahon, you had a question as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering if they recorded that session, BCTS, so that people could go back and look at it.
I don't believe they recorded it. They did have a PowerPoint presentation though, and that PowerPoint presentation is being made available.
Director McMahon, did you want to ask your other question regarding Dusty Road as well, or do you want to wait for another time? You muted yourself.
Sure. I'm happy to ask that one since Director Toth raised it. The Dusty Road site is the only site on the coast, of course, that takes septage. And a lot of the septage, if not the majority of it, comes from the rural areas. So it seems to me that we should have a joint conversation between Seashelt and the SCRD about the future of that plant.
I believe that is on the agenda. One of the things that we're looking at is how do we deal with septage going forward? You know, if we've got 11 years and that site is basically like our lease is done. We have been told that Lehigh potentially will want to mine that. So what does that look like? One of the pieces behind the increase in the rates as well is it's only been in the last 2 years that we've started separating out the costs for managing and maintaining the Dusty Road site separate from the sewer function, basically, right, as we call it here. And what we found as we started looking at those numbers is that in many cases, the sewer users were actually subsidizing septage. And then we're also on top of that have to look at, like Director Toth said, building up the capital to do something in 2031 when that lease expires. So, but yes, that is a conversation because as the District of Seashelt right now, we are providing that service to the whole Sunshine Coast. What does that look like? It is a conversation.
Okay. Thank you. So Director McMahon, might as well just go right on in and tell us what's going on in Area E, please.
Oh, well, zoom, zoom, zoom. That's what's going on with all of us. And the occasional conference call, because I've been sitting in with Chair Pratt on some of the Vancouver Coastal Health COVID conference calls. Director Ties and I had a Zoom meeting with Resilient Communities Coordinator. On April 30th, I attended a webinar with the Suzuki Foundation on their Howe Sound Conservation Map. Since all of you, I'm sure, read my newsletter, you will have the link to that map. And I also sent out a link to the Squamish language place names map, which shows the location of all their traditional villages. And in many cases, there's history associated with it and the traditional name. And if you're lucky, a pronunciation file. Very helpful. Great resource. The SquamishAtlas.com. Grant and aid this year, I think, was, it's never an easy process, but the COVID threw an extra wrinkle in the whole thing for us. And I think we all struggled with it because, so many events and projects are in question. On May the 5th, I listened in on Gibson's planning and Gibson's council for a couple of different reasons. In the planning meeting, whichever meeting it was, there was a delegation from the Conservation Association about a proposed multi-use trail through the soon-to-be covenanted area on Gospel Rock. And so, as you know, that would be, if it happens, we'll be connecting Area E and Gibson's. It's item I'm watching with some concern. I'm also interested in the approach that Gibson's is taking to short-term rentals, because I think it's potentially very complementary to the approach that we've been looking at the SCRD. And I really hope that we can come up with a fairly cohesive approach coast-wide so that people aren't quite as confused as they are at present. I attended a Dogwood Initiative Zoom meeting about post-COVID opportunities to move climate change initiatives forward. And I also attended the Climate Caucus Zero Waste Subcommittee. The guest speaker was Tim Reeve, talking about social procurement. We are already members of the Coastal Communities Social Procurement Initiative, so we're headed in the right direction, but there was a lot of good conversation. on that Zoom call, and that, you know, when we ever get lunch and learn, or if we can even Zoom and learn over lunch, social procurement is another topic, I think, to revisit and to ask some of the questions about how we're doing and how success is measured. Like, how do we know if our social procurement is changing the way we do business, and how do we define success? So I'll be interested in that. I met with the Reed Road Forest Working Group of the Elphinstone Community Association. I attended the last Scredo meeting on Monday. Colin Stansfield there is doing a lot of really good work. And in addition to a really active response to COVID, they're moving some interesting longer term projects forward. I attended the Elphinstone Community Association AGM last night, and I'll be at the Gibson's Chamber tomorrow morning. And I got my newsletter out yesterday. So, you know, COVID is not an opportunity for a prolonged vacation, not for us.
Thank you very much, Director McMahon. And if you're not receiving Director McMahon's newsletter, then you're not informed, because it's a fantastic newsletter. So, and I always appreciate reading it. Same with Director Tize's, and then Harbor Spiel from Director Lee on those monthly bases. So thank you all for putting in those efforts. Next up, I have Director Kroll from the town of Gibsons.
Thank you, Chair Pratt. Sort of a little quieter than normal. I think other people have hit a few of the things. We also passed our budget after rejigging it, I think, for the third time. Got things down to 2.2, and we also did an adjustment with the multiplier for businesses to try and give them a bit of a break. We'll see how happy people are when they get their bills a little later. Mayor Beamish and I had a meeting with our two youth counselors, and they've got an interesting project that they're proposing sort of coastwide. It's sort of a youth council delegation, and they'll be reaching out to the regional district, the district of Seashelt, the Seashelt First Nations, reaching out to Cathet to try and get a broader youth view on the Sunshine Coast. They're basically proposing meeting via Zoom to eliminate travel and a little easier scheduling. So it's sort of an exciting project, and I hope that when you do get the information on it, that you certainly give it your attention, because I think it is a very valuable project. And also having the feedback of the Sunshine Coast through another lens, and that being youth. There's not enough of that happening. I also attended the How Sound Forum. I didn't get to put in my 3 words because for some reason they totally didn't notice I was there, but that's okay. Gibson's, you people may have heard, Sea Cavalcade has been canceled. Music in the Landing has gone to a format sort of online, doing concerts out of the Heritage Playhouse. But because everyone was just longing to have a parade, Norma Brow in our building department retired after 17 years. And because we really couldn't have a party for her, the town staff got together and they organized a parade. So it was all the town vehicles. And because Norma had dealt with the building community, some of the building people like the Ready Mix Company and Bonnybrook Industries and a few other companies, Persephone Brewery, put vehicles into the parade. So it was about a 10-minute parade with lights flashing and horns blowing, and drew a lot of sort of appropriate social distance attraction. The short-term rental thing, it came up at our Planning and Development Committee meeting last week, along with some other issues that got a lot of attention. Also, the trail, the gospel. I think everyone is really concerned about what trails are built in the Gospel Rock Conservation Area, and the big concern is that a lot of people are asking for all access, and the impact of creating an all access trail has huge environmental implications. So there are a lot of eyes, and I think there's going to be a lot of attention, on the project moving forward. Hopefully, the access can be accommodated in the redevelopment of the road allowances. Short-term rentals, we've really tried to sort of, keep our eyeballs on top of what everyone else is doing. So as Councillor McMahon or Director McMahon was suggesting, that everyone is on the same page when these bylaws come into effect, and it eliminates the confusion. Our short-term rentals are fortunately governed by business licenses. I was sort of suggesting that we should really reach out to people in areas E and areas F and areas D who use Gibsons in their location address, that we should actually charge them with business licenses too, but that's likely not going to happen. But that's about it for now. I really commend the directors who met on the 4th of May to go through grant and aid. When we did it in Gibson's, it's always really challenging. And the fact that you had a 715-page agenda to go through, I really commend you. It's difficult. It's tough decisions, and the COVID thing just added another level of complexity. So my compliments to all the directors who had to deal with that. And that's about it from Gibson's.
Great. Thank you, Director Kroll. Before you start taking too many business license dollars from your surrounding rural areas, I think our corporate officer and our CFO might have something to say with that. So no, we don't have a service for that. So anyways, yes, Director Kroll.
No, it just frosts my Wheaties that people in the rural areas in their advertising, use Gibsons, and they're in Langdale, they're in, almost into Roberts Creek, they're, the back of beyond in area E, but it's still Gibsons. So it's, I'll leave it at.
Yeah. Okay. I will note that Canada Post does use that as well. So, so they've frosted your Wheaties as well. Anyways, we'll go over to one of those neighboring areas, and Director Ties, and what's going on in Roberts Creek?
Thank you. Roberts Creek is fairly quiet these days. If you were wondering, Lower Road has still not been paved. Got my newsletter out. And we attended that meeting with Director McMahon. And I got a vacuum cleaner coming in. 1 second. All right.
A vacuum cleaner through that stream?
Yeah. We are pretty busy just being parents, and there's really not much more to report than that. I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you. I hope your vacuum cleaner makes it back through the stream just as easily as it came in. I'll finish off here with the director's reports. I will be appearing at the C. Shelton District Chamber of Commerce weekly session next Thursday on May the 21st at 4 p.m. for questions and answers with the chamber. So it'll be my turn to be on the hot seat. I've been attending a lot of, they've been doing Monday meetings with our member of parliament. And then they've also, as well as with Mayor Seegers, they've also been doing weekly meetings with our MLA. So I'll be joining the fray that way. Looking forward to it. Really happy to have had our first Area Planning Commission meeting on Zoom. It went really well. We had just a couple of minor technical difficulties, but it all went through pretty well. So, and I'm hearing really positive from the other directors on how APC is running with them on Zoom. So that's great. It seems to be a really good turnout. Everyone's really comfortable with the platform. Something interesting, fun that happened last night. Rotary Club of Sunshine Coast Seashelt had their 20-year anniversary, and it was just a really good chance to reflect on projects and then volunteerism in our community, as well as outside of our community, because Rotary is one of those organizations that they do local projects as well as they do global projects, and it's the partnerships that they have, because I know the District of Seashelt, they've had a lot of good partnerships with the Rotary clubs there. I know the same with the town of Gibson's and up in Pender Harbor as well. So we have a really, really strong volunteerism in our community. And with that, I had a conversation with Pat Hunt earlier this week on the Sunshine Coast Resource and Referral Center. They're going through a little bit of a shift in focus, a little bit of an organizational review. So sat down with her and we talked a lot about, what does it look like coming out of COVID? What does it look like coming into COVID? And how the resource center fits into the fabric of the Sunshine Coast. And, very valuable organization, and so happy that it's another volunteer organization, or not just a volunteer organization, but it's another support within our community to help people find information and connect one another. One thing I've been working on in my I happen to have a screenshot sent to me from Facebook over the weekend about an individual in our community that was not allowed to board the ferry after coming out of the hospital from heart surgery. And so we have our Ferry Advisory Committee Chair, Diana Mumford, and I have been advocating with BC Ferries. We've been advocating with Vancouver Coastal Health and with Providence Health, as well as with our MLA on board around the issue of medical assured loading for any residents of the Sunshine Coast that are coming back and forth after some kind of medical procedure. This is our highway, and not being able to, being held up after, getting released from hospital. I can share more details at another point in time, but just this is an issue that, an advocacy issue that the Ferry Advisory Committee has been dealing with for a very, very long time. And so we have another resident that's having to deal with this, that it's really unfortunate. And so we're continuing to move forward on this issue, and it sounds like we might be getting some traction about that whole medical assured loading piece. So I'm going to just put the bug in your ear to my directors and then to staff as well, and anybody who's listening. If you happen to have any stories or know of anyone that's gone through these issues with not being allowed to board the ferry after having a medical procedure in the Lower Mainland, can you let me know, or let Diana Mumford know, the Ferry Advisory Committee? I'll send out an email after as well, because we're starting to collect these stories so that we can get more traction on this while there's a bit of buzz, and we can actually have put names to faces and names to the data. So it's interesting, the pushback that we're seeing, but we're hoping that we can finally make some headway on this. And then with that, there is a call tomorrow with that I'll be on with the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure regarding coming out of COVID-19. So if I get an opportunity to speak, we'll be bringing up this as well. So with that, this upcoming weekend, with it being May long weekend, I know we're all, community is really concerned. So looking forward to having community ambassadors out there. For anyone who hasn't seen Senior Manager of HR, Jerry Parker's YouTube Use Your Noodle video, you do need to see that. It's quite funny and really good advice. Just to let you know, I've heard from Staff Sergeant Poppy Hallam. They have not seen the blockade as predicted or as threatened earlier, or after, I should say, after Easter weekend. But the RCMP is keeping an eye on that for the weekend ahead. So things are moving cautiously forward, and we'll see how it goes in the weekend ahead. With that, that concludes our director's reports. We have no new business unless something has popped up in the last 40-ish minutes. Looking to staff, seeing nothing. Okay, so we will be going in camera. And just to let the members of the public or in the gallery that are listening right now, if you would like to post a question, please, now is the time to do it. After we make the motion to go in camera, we will then ask for any questions from our listening audience or viewing audience, as it were. So I will just trying to speak slowly because I know YouTube's on a little bit of a delay. So if anybody's watching from there, and I'll ask for a motion that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with Section 91A, C, and K of the Community Charter. So moved, Director Seegers, seconded Director Toth. All those in favor? Motion carries. And then we will go over to IT.
The gallery is empty at this time, Chair.
Oh, well, that's just anticlimactic. Gallery is empty, no messages desperately texted to anyone or called, seeing nothing. Okay.
On that note, Chair, I will put the meeting in camera.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very We now return you to your regularly scheduled board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District for May 14th, 2020. And we're returning you to adjourn. So may I have a motion to adjourn, please? Director Seegers, seconded Director Kroll. All those in favor? Motion carries. Brice, we'll just do one last check to see if we had anybody left or anyone at all. Just like Bueller.
Chris, you there?
Sorry, I was turned down. There is no one in the gallery.
Oh, so anticlimactic, right? So anyways, okay. So before we go into our conversation with the CAO, I'm going to just suggest just a quick 5-minute break for directors.